With Netflix releasing a trailer featuring their biggest upcoming shows, I was delighted to see that Alice in Borderland will get a new season. And what's even more awesome is that it will come out this autumn. It's quite sad that Squid Game benefits from all the attention, while Alice in Borderland barely gets any notice. Especially since, in my opinion, Alice in Borderland is better than Squid Game. In today's video, I'll compare these two shows based on their characters, games, and story. The only aspect where Squid Game comes out on top is its characters, although Season 2 disappointed quite a lot and didn't deliver any worthwhile characters. The brilliance of Season 1, however, can't be topped. In Alice in Borderland, we are first introduced to three main characters, Arisu, Chota, and Daikichi, who are best friends. As the games progress, they add a new protagonist. The friends have amazing chemistry, which lays the foundation for character development for one of the main protagonists. The side characters are also well written, and let me tell you, my favorite character from the series is actually one of the side characters. For those who have already seen Alice, you know who I'm referring to. While the characters in Alice in Borderland are well written and impactful, this show ranks second in that category. Squid Game does a fantastic job of making its characters appealing. As we keep watching, we become more emotionally attached to them. Even if all the characters in Alice in Borderland died at once, it wouldn't hit me as hard as Allie's death did. Alice in Borderland is more like a live-action anime, adapted from the manga of the same name, which poses some challenges for character development, hence its second-place ranking. The atmosphere, dramatic pacing, and panel-by-panel expressions were all created to stay as true to the manga as possible, making it harder to connect with the characters. Some situations are ridiculously exaggerated, and the characters fit right into the animated context, a style that some people find cringe. I mean, it's one thing to watch an animated scene, but it's another to see real people trying to act the same way. Meanwhile, Squid Game is more aesthetically pleasing, and endows its characters with more human traits. This is most evident in the main protagonist. The main roles in the two shows are complete opposites. Gi-hun has failed in almost every aspect of his life, and only won the games by sheer luck and kindness, while Arisu has strong problem-solving skills, critical thinking, and survives every game by finding the right strategy. He represents a genius who always has a solution, no matter how dire the situation, fitting the anime character stereotype. But don't get me wrong, Alice in Borderland did a great job with its characters. They just didn't have the deep emotional backstories that made us fall in love with Se-byok and the other players. Moving on to the games, which I believe are the most important aspect, Alice in Borderland offers more complex and diverse challenges than Squid Game. This difference largely stems from the premises of the two shows. While Squid Game uses childhood games as a dark analogy for today's society, the games we once played for fun are now deadly contests. In Alice in Borderland, the games are specifically designed to kill. Let's compare the first game from both shows. In Squid Game, we have red light, green light. The goal of this game was for players to successfully reach the other end of an enclosed field, where a large robotic doll was positioned within a time limit. Players were permitted to move when the doll called green light, but if the doll shouted red light, players were to remain stationary while the doll scanned their movements. Any player caught moving was eliminated and shot dead. In Alice in Borderland, players are trapped in a room with two doors, one that leads to death and one that lets them live. The players need to correctly choose all the doors and escape the floor within a time limit. Every room is identical except for the position of the doors. Every room is also a perfect square, but with one divided into two rooms, one of them being the final room. Entering the wrong room will result in death via laser. When the time limit begins to run out, smoke will first cover the room from a vent on the floor, and when time is up, fire will fill the entire room. From the start of the show, we can see the depth and complexity of the games. In Alice in Borderland, that game was considered an easy game. His difficulty was 3 of clubs. All the games are divided into 4 categories, each represented by a card suit. Spade games are more physical and test a player's strength and stamina. diamond games focus on logic and intelligence. Club games emphasize teamwork among the players, while heart games, the most challenging and heartbreaking, are designed to be emotional and psychological tests. The card number further indicates the difficulty of each game. The main objective of the show is to collect all the playing cards and return to the real world. Moving into our final category, the plot, let me tell you that Alice in Borderland had me glued to the screen. When Season 1 ended with that cliffhanger, it tore me apart, leaving me craving more like a drug addict desperate for his next fix. I wanted more, and I wanted it now. Waiting 2 years felt like an eternity. Meanwhile, the ending of Squid Game didn't leave the same impression on me. Even if it hadn't continued into a second season, I would have felt pretty satisfied with that ending. Alice in Borderland does an incredible job of drawing you into its mystery. You're constantly left wondering about the purpose of the games, who is behind them, and whether the players can really escape if they collect all the cards. In contrast, Squid Game lacks those kinds of plot mysteries. We know who created the games, why the players agreed to participate, and even in the final game, it wasn't surprising that Gi-hun won because he was the main character. Yet, even if you already knew the ending, Squid Game delivered it in a fantastic way. I never expected in a million years that Song-woo would sacrifice himself to help Gi-hun win, and I was even more shocked to learn about Il-nam. Still, Squid Game didn't build the same anticipation for me because I always knew from the start that Gi-hun would win. Meanwhile, Alice in Borderland presents us with many unanswered questions. The answers aren't laid out in the open, while keeping us entertained with dramatic games that make you wonder how you would play if you were in the main character's shoes. You find yourself facing a game where you think you know the rules, only to be dazzled by the ways they twist those rules into entirely new challenges, where only the most cunning can win. To wrap things up, I really enjoyed Alice in Borderland more than Squid Game, and all of my friends who watched the show ended up loving it. We're all excited for the final season. Let me know in the comments what you think about it and if you'd give it a try.